Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a look at putting numbers into standard form and when numbers are in a standard form, taking them out and making them back to a normal number. Before we get started, we have to just do a quick recap on some powers of 10. So 10 cubed means 10 times 10 times 10, which of course will give us the answer of 1,000. 10 squared, so 10 times 10 would be 100. 10 to the power of 1, well, it's just 10. 10 to the power of 0, or anything to the power of 0 for that matter, will always give us 1, because as you can see the pattern here, we are dividing by 10 each time. And this is more what I'm doing this for, is when you have a negative power. So if you have 10 to the power of minus 1, as I said, you keep dividing by 10, so I would keep going, and I'll do 1 divided by 10, which is 1/10. But essentially, that is the same as saying dividing by 10. 1/10 is the same as saying dividing by 10. This one here, 10 to the power of minus 2. So again, I'm going to divide by 10 again. That's the same as saying 1 over 100, or essentially, we are just dividing by 100. And this one here, 10 to the power of minus 3, again I'm going to divide by 10 again, so that's the same as saying divide by 1,000, or sorry, 1 over 1,000, which as I say is the same as divide by 1,000. Okay, that's going to be coming in really handy when dealing with standard form. So what is standard form? Well, it's something that follows this format here, where A is just a number between 1 and 10, but not 10. And you times it by 10, hence why I just recap these here, and it's the power of an integer, where integer just means whole number. Okay, so that's what we need. That's the actual format for standard form, and that's what we're going to have a look at, putting these numbers into standard form. Okay, so let's get started. So as I said, the A is a number between 1 and 10, but not 10. So I'm going to look at this number here. I'm going to put the decimal point so that the number is between 1 and 10. So the obvious place that's going to go is between the 7 and the 3. Okay, so if I put the decimal point there, this number is now between 1 and 10. Anywhere else it wouldn't. If I put it there, it'd be 73.2, too big. If I put it there, 732, again too big. So the only place it can go is there. Once you've figured that bit out, what the A is, we're then going to times it by 10 and keep timesing it by 10 until we get back to the original. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do times by 10 just once, which will give me 73.2. I'm going to times by 10 again because I haven't quite got back to the original. So that's 730. So again, I need to keep going. I times by 10 again. So 7,300. Still not the same. Times 10 again. 73,000. Still not the same. Oh, sorry, I'm missing the 2 out here, aren't I? Sorry. There we go. And that needs to be a 2. There we go. So it's correct now. Apologies for that. So again, it's still not the same. So I times by 10 again. Now it's the same. Okay. So how many times have I times by 10? I've done it once. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've times by 10 5 times. So that's why when I have my A here, I times by 10 to the power of 5, because that's what I've done. I've times it by 10 5 times. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Again, where does the decimal point need to go to make this number here between 1 and 10? It's exactly the same thing. It's going to have to go there. So I'm going to have 9.462. Okay? And again, I'm going to times this by 10, because that's what it always is for standard form, but I don't know how many times. So to work that out, just keep timesing by 10 until you get back to the original. Okay, let's do that. Let's do it once. So I'll have 94.62, clearly not the same. Let's do it again. So we've got 946.2, nope. One more, let's have a look. Nope, still not enough. Keep going, let's times by 10 again. Still not enough, times by 10 again. Still not enough. So one more time, we'll do it. There we go, they're now the same. Okay, so how many times did I times by 10? Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times? Okay, 6 times. And again, that number is now in standard form. Let's have a go at this one. So you might notice that if I work out what A is, so a number between 1 and 10, so in this case it's going to be 3, and again I'm going to times it by 10, but how many times do I times it by 10? You might have already spotted a quick way of doing this, whereas if the decimal point is there, and I times by 10, I just move the decimal point, so I just go times by 10 once, times by 10 twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, to get it back to the original. Exactly the same thing here. It was between the 7 and the 3, so if I times by 10 once, move the decimal point there, so that's once, twice, 3, 4, 5, so it's the power of 5. So that's the quick way of doing it, which is what I'm going to do for this one here. The decimal point is there just after the 3. How many times do I times by 10? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 3 times 10 to the power of 9, because I've moved that decimal point of times by 10 9 times. Either way is absolutely fine. Obviously that way is a bit quicker, but this way I think avoids any mistakes, apart from this little one I did here, but as you can see I sorted it out. So either way, absolutely fine. This one here, so this is a number that's already a decimal, but again it's not in standard form, so I'm going to put it into standard form. So the decimal point is currently there, but I need it so that the number is between 1 and 10. So I'm going to have to move it to be in between the 1 and the 4. Like so. Okay, this number now, 1.46724, is between 1 and 10, so that bit's fine. And I need to times it by 10, but how many times do I times it by 10 to get back to the original? But I want to go back to this method here, but again, you can do the short one if you wish. I'm going to times it by 10 once, so 14.6724. Again, not the same, so I'm going to times it by 10 again. Again, not quite the same, but one more should do the trick. Yep, lovely. Now it's exactly the same. So how many times have I times by 10? I've times by 10 3 times. So all of these numbers are now in standard form. Okay, so let's have a look at some other examples. So these ones here are slightly different. As you can tell, they're a really small number now, where it's a 0.00061. But the process is still the same. I still need to put the decimal point, so I have a number between 1 and 10. So it's going to have to go between that 6 and 1. So 6.1, that number is now between 1 and 10. So I times by 10, and again, how many times do I times by 10? Now you might have already jumped ahead of me here, and so if I times by 10, the decimal point is going to be going to the right. I need it to go to the left. So we're not actually going to be timesing by 10 in this case, we're going to be dividing by 10. But hopefully, you can remember from the start over here, when we divide by 10 or divide by 100 or divide by 1,000, all we do is we have a negative power. So that's all that's going to happen when I'm putting this into standard form, is I'm going to have a negative power. So let's see how many times I divide by 10. So let's do one time. So I'm going to have 0.61. Definitely not the same. Let's go again. 0.061. Again, not the same. Let's divide by 10 again. 0.0061. Nearly there. One more time should do it. There we go, they're now exactly the same. So how many times have I divided by 10? 1, 2, 3, 4. And because it was dividing, it's a minus 4. So there we go, that is now in standard form. Same thing over here. Where does the decimal point need to go? Well, it needs to go between the 6 and the 4. So 6.472. That's now a number between 1 and 10. And again, I need to times that by times by 10. And to the power of something, that's what we need to figure out. And again, I'm not going to times it by 10, I'm going to be dividing by 10, so the decimal point goes towards the left. So if I divide by 10 once, 0.6472, divide by 10 again, 0.06472, not quite the same. Let's do it one more time, and I think we'll be there. there we go. They're now exactly the same. How many times did I divide by 10? I divided by 10 3 times. Remember, dividing is a minus, so to the power of minus 3. So again, you might be able to spot a little quick way of doing this. If the decimal point is between the 6 and the 4, and I know I'm dividing by 10, I divide by 10 1, 2, 3, hence why it was a minus 3. And here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I divided by 10 4 times. So again, you can do the quick way if you wish, which is what I'm going to do for this one over here. So this one over here, where's the decimal point need to be? Well, it needs to be here. So I have 7 is the number between 1 and 10. And how many times will I divide by 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So because I was dividing, it's a minus, and I divided by 10 5 times. So it's times 10 to the power of 5. Again, all these numbers are now in standard form. So that's how you put numbers into standard form. How do we get numbers out of standard form? So I've got 3 examples here, all of which are in standard form already. And now I want to find out what the actual number is. So this one's actually a little bit easier, because all it's saying is 4.7 times 10 5 times. That's all it means. So again, you could just write this out. I'm going to times by 10 once to give myself 47. I'm going to times by 10 again. So that's twice. 3 times. 4 times. And last one. Okay, there we go. So there's my answer. 4.7 times 10 to the power of 5 is 470,000. Okay, so I've just times by 10 5 times. This one here, I got a times by 10 twice. So times by 10, so 81.32, that's once. Times 10 again. And that's it, so 813.2. Okay. So again, you can do this a quick way. If you know you're timesing by 10 twice, you can just move the decimal point twice. Times by 10 once, times by 10 twice, so it goes there. This one here is a little bit trickier, but you can still do it. If I just come underneath here. So I need to times by 10 5 times. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The decimal point will end up being there. So all you do then is fill in the zeros, like so. And don't forget to write out your answer again, a bit clearer, like so. So that's the quick way of doing it, but I quite like this way because it shows a step-by-step guide of how you do it. This one over here then, this time it's to the power of minus 4. So remember, if it's to the power of a minus, we're actually dividing by 10. So let's crack on and do that. So I'm going to divide by 10 once, so 0.7213, divide by 10 twice, and divide by 10 again, and the last time, so 4 times, and we get that answer there. Okay, so again, the slightly quicker way, you could write out the number, and I'm dividing by 10 4 times, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so the decimal point has to be there, and again I could just fill in the zeros as I need to. Don't forget to write out your answer clearly so the examiner knows exactly what you've done. So that's a quick way of doing it, but again I quite like this way. Right, so a couple more things just to talk about before the end of the video. I've got one more example like that where we're oh, that's the wrong one, that's my answer sheet. Bear with me a second. So, here we've got one more example when we're dividing by. So again, I'll show you the quick way of doing it. So if I write down 8, and the decimal point will obviously be just after the 8, and I'm dividing by 10 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again I can just fill in the zeros as I need to. So the answer 0.00000, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 8. Okay, so again, you can just divide that by 8 6 times in the way we've been doing it, or you can do it the quick way. Or do both and double check that you got the same answer at the end is always a good shout as well. So what comes up in exams? Well, this is very common. This can come up in the exams. It says which one of these is in standard form, and you've got a multi-choice. So let's go through this and start to try and eliminate which ones definitely are not. So this one here, the number in the front needs to be a number between 1 and 10, but not 10. So that one isn't in standard form because that number is not between 1 and 10. This one here, same reason, 0.35, that is not between 1 and 10, but also the power of 10 here is a half, and remember it needs to be an integer and a whole number, so again, that's wrong as well. This one here, 8.31, that is between 1 and 10, so that's not a problem, but again, needs to be an integer, and here it's a decimal. So even though it's a decimal and that's a fraction, it's still not a whole number, so it doesn't count. That one's out. And this one's okay. This one here is between 1 and 10, and that one is an integer. So that would be the one that you'd select. That one is in standard form. Okay, so it's just a few things there to bear in mind when dealing with a multi-choice question like that. The other thing that you can have is something like this, and this comes in very handy when doing calculations with standard form, which will be in another video, where you've got some number here. It's not quite in standard form because this isn't between 1 and 10. However, the question will ask you to put it into standard form. So you need to be a little bit careful here. So as with before, we need to make sure that the number is between 1 and 10, but not including 10. So the decimal point is clearly going to go in between the 6 and the 8. So how have I done that? Well, I've had to divide by 10. I've had to divide by 10 once to get it to where it is now. Now, because this is just a number, okay, 68.12 times 10 to the power of 3, it needs to stay the same number. So if I make this 10 times smaller, to keep it the same, I need to make this 10 times bigger. So to make this 10 times bigger, I add 1 to the power, so that becomes a 4. Okay, think of like a balance. If you make that 10 times smaller, I need to make that 10 times bigger to make sure they stay equal. Okay, it's like the same thing over here. Again, this isn't between 1 and 10, so I'm going to move the decimal point so it is. So that's going to be a 5.7 times 10. Now this time I've had to times by 10 twice to get the decimal point to where I want it. So if I've made this, or times by 10, I made it 10 times bigger twice to get where I want it to be, I've got to make this 10 times smaller. So, sorry, 10 times smaller twice. So if I times by 10, I've got to divide by 10, divide by 10. So I'm going to take 2 off the power there. This one here, again, I'm going to put my decimal point so the number is between 1 and 10. And again, what have I done? Well, I've divided by 10 and divided by 10 again. So I made it 10 times smaller, 10 times smaller. So I need to make this 10 times bigger, 10 times bigger. So I'm going to add 2 to the power, so that becomes minus 2. Again, to keep it equal, to keep this number the same. And this one over here is going to be 7.2 times 10, and I had to times by 10, 1, 2, 3, so I made it 10 times bigger 3 times, so I've got to make that 10 times smaller 3 times, so making it smaller 3 times, minus 7, take away another 3, will give me minus 10. Okay, so that might not have made a bit of sense, so maybe if I could just do a little bit of an example, you can see what I mean. So 68.12 times 10 to the power of 3, if I just actually write that number out, so that would be, and then 1, 2, 0. Okay, so I move the decimal point 1, 2, 3 times. So this is actually this number here, 68,120. Now, if I move the decimal point to the left, like I did there, okay, I need to add 1 to the power, because if I then work this out, so I've got 6, 8, 1, 2, so I move the decimal point 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, I still have the same number. Okay, so if I'm moving it or dividing by 10 there, I have to make that, or making that 10 times smaller, I have to make that 10 times bigger so the number stays the same. Okay, so whatever you do to 1, the opposite has to be done there. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense as to what I was doing with these examples. Okay, so that's some standard form, guys. Hopefully that helps. Stay tuned for calculations with standard form. Thanks for watching.